crisis is a disruptor. It means it's no longer business as usual. So the reason why leading during a crisis is differently is that you actually have to shift the organization into a different mode of thinking. You're no longer trying to get them to be better at what they do, but you're trying to get them to do things differently, because a crisis is the ultimate externality, the ultimate change in your external environment. So usually leaders try to make people do what they do even better, but because the crisis implies that the external environment changed, you need them to do something different. But what really should stay the same is that core value. Even if your strategy changes, because a crisis means that you have to revamp the direction of the organization, revamp the strategy, I believe during a crisis, a leader goes back to those core fundamental values that transcend any external change in the environment. So instead of talking about strategy during a crisis, you're more talking about the vision. And you mentioned 9/11 as an example. One of the things that the mayor at the time was talking about were the fundamental transcendent values of the American people. And you talk about all the crises that the American people went through. 2 world wars, depression, the Civil War going even back. So you're no longer talking about strategy, because after 9/11, your strategy had to change. So the leader during a crisis goes back to those core fundamental values. That is the common thread, regardless of what's happening out there. The leader during crisis gravitates towards talking about those absolutes that transcend any changes that are happening in the environment. And from those absolute core values, regardless of what they are, that's where that new strategy is built upon. I also believe that leading during a crisis is that the successful leader talks about the harsh realities. At the beginning, people just need to know, no matter how difficult it is to hear, what those truths are, because credibility is so important during a crisis. They talk about the fog of war. And one of the first casualties of any crisis is truth, and that's why there's so many rumors going around. So during a crisis, the leader has to embrace his credibility as the only currency that he or she could never afford to lose. So that becomes even more important.